Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate prose. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. It tells me recording in progress, which means we're live. This is session 90 for Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast with our guest, a returning guest, but a new role. Same guy, not same guy, new role. Adam Douglas is here this evening. He is the director of sport performance, sports science and performance for the Montreal Canadiens. Look forward to diving into this chat and how this evolved, and after for Toronto fans, at least after an early exit, we'll talk about how that evolved for you on your side. But all joking aside, just before we get into our chat and before we even get to our sponsors, I just like to take a moment of acknowledgement, a moment of silence for a young man who passed away yesterday following week one of U Sports football. University of Ottawa defensive lineman Francis Perram, a fifth-year defensive lineman, passed away yesterday following the opening week game against the University of Toronto. To his family, teammates, the first responders, and all this affects, may you find peace and grieve with support. As the head coach of Ottawa stated, if you've been touched by this loss, please seek help. If you're feeling overwhelmed or in need of emotional support, resources are available through the University of Ottawa, through GG's Football, at GG's Football, and at the University of Ottawa through all of their social media channels. Let's chat. We'll jump in here, a rather dark note, but at the same time, puts a lot of things in perspective in terms of sport and the value that it provides and the camaraderie and the support built within. Session 90, we're going to jump in here. As always, brought to you by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Benchmark Athletics, and Epic. That's EPOCH. Adam Douglas is our guest this evening. Adam is, man, so many things, so many titles, a good friend, a colleague, a returning guest here, formerly of oversaw all of the things at York University in a strength and conditioning role, was with Hockey Canada for a number of years, directly with Hockey Canada for a number of years, overseeing all of those things, completed a PhD in amazing things in hockey and stride length and power and what all of these things need and mean in the sport, transitioned to Catapult, where he oversaw hockey operations with Catapult, GPS tracking and beyond, sort of in the analytics side of sports and technology, and has recently been recruited and signed on with the Montreal Canadiens. Adam, welcome aboard, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, James. I think I was probably episode 9 or 10 when you first got back pre-COVID. So happy to be back. And honestly, I know everyone says happy to be here, but thanks for having me back. Always great to chat with friends. And you opened on a little bit of a somber moment, and I didn't know about that. I didn't know. So as a former U Sport football player myself, that's touching. I feel absolutely awful for everybody there. And I know most likely the first responders you mentioned were athletic therapists, so potentially people within your audience. So certainly my heart does go out to everybody affected by that.
Yeah, much appreciated. And I wasn't there, but have spoken to a number of people who were, and always one of those things where everybody involved, this is going to touch on different levels. So again, please, anybody who is affected by this, reach out to somebody, let them know how you're feeling, and there are support systems in place, but also please give yourself the space and grace to grieve and feel your way through this with the support of others. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we'll, as news comes out, I think that I announced this here because that just got announced through Ottawa and their channels and the football program. So we won't get into any of those details, but certainly a time to reflect, and a time to to harness all those good things, and a good quality chat with another solid human being and a good friend here. Been looking forward to this since your announcement, and you've hunkered down now, I think, in Montreal, and the walls aren't painted blue, red, and white just yet behind you, but you're not in the office either. So
this is my furnished condo that I rented, short-term rentals. So we're ready. We're set up. Actually, I just came upstairs because I've got our dietitian, our head strength coach, and our Laval strength coach downstairs. We had a football and pizza afternoon to get them out of the hotel a little bit. So I just left them. One of the games went into OT. So I just left them downstairs to come up here and do this podcast. So, we were at the rink this morning till about 4, and we said, we got to get out. So, everybody kind of pile in, and we'll come to my place, and we'll have pizza, wings, and get them out of their hotel room for an afternoon.
yeah, the fuel that everybody needs, right? All those healthy choices that are made in the sport performance space. No, beautiful.
Our dietitian's downstairs. She at least brought a salad to the party.
There you go. You got to mix in the salad every now and then chant the Homer Simpson song. You don't win friends with salad, but you at least play for the tie. So tie goes to overtime. Away we go. Montreal Canadiens. You're here. You've done so many things. You've been working from home through the pandemic. You see, obviously, you're aware of what goes on in the hockey world. Montreal beats Toronto in the first round, ripping off old wounds here, or recent wounds, I guess, for perhaps some listeners. How does this evolve for you in terms of where does this role come from? How does this fit into your world and your life? And we'll start there and then dive into hopefully some of the nitty gritty with what this role entails on your side.
Yeah, well, it actually came together rather quickly, as things do in the sports world. The outgoing, performance director, his name's Pierre Allard, a good friend of mine, worked closely with him with Catapult, ran a great ship here, I would say. He had been here 12 years and decided he wanted a new challenge. So he left on his own accord to take an actual coaching job. So he's back on the bench in Munich, in Germany. And so he kind of called me and said, I'm leaving. What do you think? Would you want me to kind of put your name on the short list and put your name forward? And I had actually worked previously with Hockey Canada with the head coach, Dom Ducharme, and we had a great relationship. So I said, yeah, I'd love it. Opportunities like this don't come along very often, but also somebody who I would say has enough experience like myself. I had certain criteria if I was ever going to consider an opportunity in the NHL. With my wife and kids, we wanted it to be a Canadian city, which obviously very narrows your opportunities.
Yeah.
But there was also other things, because I'd already been there and kind of crashed and burned a little bit, well, that's going back almost 13, 14 years now. But
right.
So I wanted a coach I had either worked with in the past, which, that sounds like a lofty goal, but when you spend 9 years with Hockey Canada, you've worked with a lot of coaches so you have a good reach there. A general manager who is relatively stable and I could clearly see a vision from them. And then an organization that, I feel has high values. There's only 32 of these jobs, not even 32 performance director jobs, but 32 teams in the National Hockey League. But, each one is different. And so when an original 6 team calls, you kind of answer the phone. So when Pierre told me he was leaving, and did he want me to kind of put my name forward, I said absolutely. Reached out through my network a little bit to kind of, I hadn't talked to Dom in a while, but kind of reached out to the organization, told them I'd be interested, and then Dom called me, the head coach called me, we had a great chat. Meanwhile, Mark Bergevin, the GM, was also vetting me through Hockey Canada. Mark's very well connected with Hockey Canada, so I had found out kind of through my network and through my references, that he had called and done his due diligence. And then I had a call with the coach, GM, and assistant GM. We just kind of talked about vision, where I saw the role, what I would kind of, bring to the table. And, they called me, a little bit later and offered me the position. So it checked all of my boxes. I was very happy what I was doing with both Hockey Canada and Catapult. The nice part about both of those was with Hockey Canada, I was very much still in the applied world, getting that team experience and working with coaches and athletes. But with Hockey Canada, I was at that, I would say that cutting edge of sport technology, but able to work with, they just signed their 16th team in hockey. So half the league were guys I was talking to every day. So I was very happy there. But the opportunity to work with an organization that checks all your boxes, a coach, a very stable GM with a very strong vision, a Canadian team, a team that has, a long-term culture and history, not just themselves, but of the people that work there. Pierre had been there 12 years. Their medical staff is phenomenal. They've been there a long time. They're well established. So to come in and be able to put your own spin on things was great. And, fortunately, not because of poor job performance, but the strength coach from Montreal was moving on to another role. And the strength coach in Laval, which is our American Hockey League team, was moving on as well. Like all personal choice, not poor performance or got fired. So I was able to come in as the director of sports science and performance and hire my own team under my own vision and aligned goals, which is huge. Like not many people, you usually inherit who you get, but I had the opportunity to bring in my own people. So, I spent the first 3 weeks on the job interviewing. And for both the Laval role and the Montreal role, it was myself. I vetted them first. Then I had them fill out I'll call it a questionnaire, but it was really 4 or 5 questions, like performance related questions. And then we did an interview with myself and our therapy team. People who are well established. I hadn't even met them yet, but I reached out and said, do you want to be involved and help us hire these strength coaches? Because for me, alignment with our medical program is important. So I wanted them to feel involved in that process and feel and get their opinion, because they'd been in it. People who they thought would fit into the already established culture of the Montreal Canadiens and the Laval Rockets. So, Glenn Kenny, who's our head therapist in Laval, was on our interview panel for the Laval job. And then Graham Rybend and Matthew Romero, 2 of our athletic therapists / physios, helped with the Montreal job. So, being able to do that, plus our dietitian chose the opportunity to transition out. So I got to hire our own performance dietitian. So, we're coming in, we're brand new, but we're coming into a greatly established organization. And, I couldn't say no. Like I could not say no to the opportunity.
Yeah, it sounds very much that way. I mean, I know you, and we go back a number of years, and sure, you have to have a criteria to move into some of these positions. You know how much these positions take, how much time they take, what they take you away from, all of these pieces, and not to cut down to it, but the number of times that you spoke to relationships and to a storied history and to an understanding and established medical staff, and building from those pieces with people that and trust and have sort of at least had the opportunity to vet, and not everybody stepping into these roles reaches out to the current staff and draws them in. I think that's a critical piece, obviously, from your side, and from their side, it obviously provides an opportunity of trust right away, an opportunity of codependence in these roles, and the overlap between therapy and strength and conditioning, and obviously, like, I don't want to say the old guard, but those that are well established in the organization, and then you coming in. And you talk about coming in new and fresh and these pieces, but none of you are new and fresh to this world. So how does that play into sort of filtering in? Is it lots of hours to get? I mean, you already talked about it coming in here. You got Sunday night, everybody's together the downstairs crushing wings and pizza and football, and you just kind of get together and hang out. And I'm sure there's a lot of authentic conversation and bonding and these different things where you can start to understand characteristics and personalities and these other pieces. But what is a vision when you come into a team like this with an original six? Like, this is a dream job for many therapists and strength coaches out there, and for you, I would imagine, as well. But you're actually living this dream that, you're right, not everybody has this role. Certainly not everybody has this in a storied history like Montreal. So how do you sort of pinch yourself and bring you back to reality and begin to navigate? What are the first steps for you jumping in?
The one thing, so ended up hiring, we went through, like, the interview process was a lot, but I wanted to find somebody that, we could work well with for both positions. Ended up hiring Dale LeBlanc, who you and I both worked with in York, or at York.
Yeah.
But really,
way back when.
So that was a big piece, right? Somebody you're familiar with, and everyone says, oh, like, you hire your friends, or hire your people, but it was tough. Like we put Dale through the ringer. Like, it got down to our final two candidates. And so, I did an interview. We did the written piece, like I had mentioned, then we did the interview with the therapists, and then our top two candidates did an interview with myself, our GM, and our head coach.
Right.
And then we did an interview with our captain, Shea Weber as well. So we did our due diligence, and the opportunity to work again with Dale, was a very strong positive, because we knew what he could bring. And really, the number one thing, that our number one mandate, certainly early on, now that we've been here a little bit, but our number one mandate, and this is something I echoed to both candidates we were talking to, but I knew Dale could do a good job, is certainly for this first year, we need to be chameleons. Like, we are the only two people coming into an already well-established organization that has very well-established principles, and they're successful, right? A lot of times you can come into these jobs and it's, the people that were there before you were scorched earth, and you're coming in, you're building from the ground up. We are coming into an already well-established organization with people who are at the top of their game. So we need to fit in. Mm-hmm. And now that we've been here a little bit, it's okay, how do we fit in and continue to improve what was already built on? Because Pierre and Pat, the outgoing performance director and strength and conditioning coach, did a great job. But also at the same time, I'm a very type A personality, so it's how can we take what they did and make it better? And that's not a knock on them, because they did a great job, but fresh eyes can see a lot of things. So one of the first things Dale and I did was we came in and said, how can we change the gym? And that's not dropping 30 to 40K on brand new equipment. It's how can we just change this area to make it our space? So we moved the dumbbell rack, put it against the wall, created open space. We moved where they had all their like SMR stuff to a different area in the gym to make it flow a little bit better, and just open stuff up. So now when guys walk in, they're like, wow, this is a brand new space. And in our head, we're saying, yeah. But in reality, we know we just moved some stuff around to, open it up, give it a fresh perspective. And we wanted people to feel like it was a new space without actually changing much. We only got rid of a few equipment. Although when I say that, we also filled a dumpster full of just kind of like old equipment, stuff that had been broken, you have that opportunity to bring fresh eyes to things. But we didn't really change that much yet, but guys walk in now that they've been coming back and they're like, wow, like this looks like a new space. And we just moved, shifted a few things around. It's like, like I'll use the example of when Sam took over from me at York and Emerson. Now, like I see their stuff on Instagram. It's the exact same equipment, but they just brought fresh eyes to that space. It's like, wow, it looks like a brand new gym. Right. So, we wanted that opportunity to do that. And anytime there's change, I'm going to say people are a lot more open to things, like, we pitch ideas and people are like, yeah, that's great. And, the outgoing people might have said that five or six times, but, a new voice comes in and they, they're more welcome to it. And it's not that we're doing anything different. It's just whenever there's change, there's opportunity to trial different things. So
Sure.
really, but to answer your question, long story short, Dale and I's mandate was to be chameleons, come in, figure out, what could we do without overturning the apple cart? How do we fit in? But at the same time, how can we make it better? And we found some simple and easy wins, and we're just going to kind of continually to compound those and build on.
Yeah, beautiful capture. And I think all of those points are can resonate for new grads, for student therapists that are still in the world, student strength coaches, interns, wherever you are in the performance space, or even as a practitioner or a parent or whatever these things are, is you don't have to overhaul everything in your first move, but being able to fit into the environment, capture what the environment is, and this is one of many things that I took away from you, Adam, in our overlapping time at York, was the bare bones of it when it came down to myself walking from the therapy room down to the strength and conditioning and trying to collaborate, was to sit and listen and try to capture your vision and fit into that so that we could blend things a little bit more. And the one thing that really jumped out is you have this, yes, type A maybe to a certain degree, but also this ability to capture the sports need analysis was one thing that you did so well. And just looking at, what does this team need? What does this sport need? And then within this sport, what do these positional players need? But those individual athletes as well, who doesn't move well through their ankle but should be moving well through their ankle, these kinds of pieces. And this needs analysis goes much further. And obviously we have small circles that overlap as well on this end. And the other thing that I think and compliment, I hope, what you bring to the table, you understand your value. And I think that's a difficult thing for many of us to capture and to put out there. But at the same time, you also identify where you need support. And Dale and you are not the same person, but you fill the gaps. I don't want to say gaps, but the areas of support that the other may need. And I think that in terms of laying out personnel into a new space is only going to elevate things, hopefully, in the Canadian system. And again, that storied history and knowing who's there, and getting your feet on the ground early with that's massive. Like, these are massive touch points, learning points for all of us at whatever stage we're at in our career. And the next part being change and being on the other side and understanding, if we flip everything upside down, we're probably going to disrupt some things too. So if we just go gently about this same space, don't change too much, don't bring in all new systems on day one, but make some moderate changes so that when they walk in, they know it's new, but they also know it's familiar and friendly and still available to them. So some really great takeaways in just a brief capture of this transition for you. You're in Montreal now. Camp is officially getting started. Is that where we're at right now?
Camp. We've had like 4 or 5 days of rookie camp, and then main camp starts Wednesday. So
right.
Yeah.
So things will ramp up again. And then for the listeners out there, for all of us listening, what does this role entail for you? You're obviously not going to be on the bench every day, but where does this situate in terms of what is the director of sports science and performance?
Well, for me, the role, and I wish you'd prepped me, because I have slides of what this is now, but essentially, in a nutshell, that the non-presentation perspective is essentially, I'm in charge of the global organizational vision of performance, or anything off the ice that can improve performance on the ice, is kind of how you do it. So for me, I'm not in the day-to-day, but I'm in charge of the organizational objectives and vision to ensure high performance. And so that means I work across our scouting and development. I work across our obviously our pro organization with the Montreal Canadiens, but I'm also in charge of our prospect pipeline from the Laval Rocket. I've hired individuals to work on the day-to-day to get stuck into the actual training. So I'm not going to be programming unless Dale needs help, or if we have rehabbed injured guys that Dale's away and they step in, but Dale's in charge of the day-to-day and I'm there to support him. We have this real nice dichotomy in that things are crazy right now. Like we'll have 20 to 30 guys show up because we're a week out of training camp and they're all coming back. So the gym is absolutely crazy, but the nice part is I can step in and coach because of my background in strength and conditioning as a strength coach.
Yeah.
And Dale and I have previously worked together that he knows if I'm stepping in, it's not to be this panoptic eye over top of him to evaluate what he's doing, but I'm stepping in to help. So, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but yesterday we were doing like resisted shuffle cut drills, and I'm more than happy to step in and work with those guys to hold a band, that sort of thing. Like that's just what we do. And so that's where, Dale and I can work well because, the gym we're describing it right now as it's organized chaos. Because we've got 30 different guys. Some of them we've never seen. They just walked into the gym 5 minutes ago and are like, well, let's train. And so we've got that going on. And a lot of what I'm doing are kind of some of the sports science initiatives. So I'm in charge of kind of running our player tracking or our player monitoring system, making sure we've got a lot of organization across the different levels, from our prospects to our American Hockey League team to our NHL team, kind of just streamlining things a lot.
Right.
But really, if I had to summarize it, it's anything that can impact performance on the ice falls under my purview. Our mental performance consultant is a phenomenal Dr. David Scott from the University of New Brunswick. He falls under my thing. And the first thing we said is, he's like, oh, I guess I fall under yours. And I said, hey, if what you're doing is working, let's keep it up. I'd love to learn more about it, but I'm not going to change how you do your job because you are extremely successful. And he's been in the National Hockey League since 99 or something like that. Like it's, He might fall under me, but I'm not going to come in and tell him how he needs to do his job. And I firmly believe in a lot of autonomy between, our dietitian and Dale and Steph Gervais, who we hired in Laval. But really, a lot of what I need to do is work on our performance vision. I think there's opportunities to make sure it's aligned, make sure we have those pipelines. One of the things that Dale and I, we joke, but we want to try to have like a flow chart for every decision-making process we have. So how do we is a guy fast? Like, we'll just start there. Is a guy fast? Then it's like, yes or no, what are the decision trees coming out of it? Because people understand division trees. And the nice part about division trees, well, we know sport performance isn't black and white. So it's not always going to be yes or no answer. It can provide you with a lot of information to help people understand why you're doing things. And that's the number one thing Dale and I decided we're going to do, is we're going to be very open in what we're asking people to do. We're asking you to train this specific way because of X. And we believe X helps you be a better hockey player. We're meeting a lot of players for the first time. I've been there 2.5 weeks, same as Dale, like in Montreal, 3 weeks maybe. But we're meeting all these new players as they come back into town and get ready for camp. And, basically, my conversation with them goes the same way. And I say, Dale and I are here to help you be better on the ice. So whatever you need to perform your sport, we're going to help you with it. But at the same time, we have certain things that we know will help you. And so we want to help you integrate that into what you want to do. But at the end of the day, we want to do whatever we can to help you. Because if you are the best player you can be, it's going to help the broader organization, the Montreal Canadiens. And we really feel like that, vision will feed up the chain. And we say the same thing to coaches. If we can put the players in the best position to succeed so the coaches can get the best out of them when it's time, then we've done our job. And that's what we do. We're just going to try to take an individualized approach to our players, health and performance, so we can put them in a position to succeed on the ice.
Yeah, it's an amazing, so many amazing pieces to take from that too. And leading through living it, Adam, is another thing. Is like your discussion as to like, we need to be chameleon and come in here and just sort of fit in and be able to do this and be able to do that. And then being able to follow that up by living it. A lot of people have great vision, but they don't necessarily follow through on the living it piece. And being able to get on the floor and hold a band and be active in the strength coach part of things to support the organized chaos that is a rookie camp and the beginning of training camp. As you know, you're not doing it for an ulterior motive, but it bodes very well for responsiveness from the athletes moving forward. Our director is, I see it as, our therapist is willing to do laundry. Our therapist is willing to spray down tables. Our therapist is willing to so on and so forth from this realm. First one in, last one out kind of mentality, or just do the simple things as well as the really complex things. The responsiveness of athletes goes a long way when they see you in multiple hats as well. And then the autonomy that you spoke of in your role, ripples out into the athletes as well. You want them to be their best. You want to be there to support them in those roles, but ultimately they're in control of where they can be their best and how they can be their best. They need to be coached along the way. They need to be pushed where they need to be pushed and sort of guided, but they also need to get the most out of themselves. And I think those are great captures for all of us, from the therapy side, from the strength side, from anybody listening into this, whether you're a leader or somebody who falls underneath leadership. This is an outstanding sort of discussion from leadership down, but you talk about horizontal as well as vertical. You're across the organization, but you're also up the chain to sort of administration and the GM. Is that a fair way to sort of see your role?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you two quick stories that happened this past week based off kind of what you just said there, James. And number one, I think a lot of, when you say, they see you holding that banner, you're kind of in the trenches there, is a lot of people in my role, like, this performance director role is relatively new in the National Hockey League. And not everybody has had success with it. Those,
Right.
Potentially some of that is they were just too new, like too early, right? There's that whole, like, disruptors versus innovators versus whatever. But a lot of people in this role that I'm in, the players perceive them as, oh, that's the guy behind the computer, or that's the guy looking at numbers, or that's the guy who collects all this stuff on us and doesn't tell us. And one of the things I've said to Dale is, I want to be out on the gym floor. So be prepared for me to be out there, coaching with you, because I want players to see me in a role that engages with them. I don't want them to just walk by and be like, oh, Adam's in his office again, staring at computers and spreadsheets and whatever. So, like, that's one of the things I've said is, like, we need to be out there and we need to be visible. And the other thing is, when you talk about, first in, last out, wiping down tables, that sort of thing, and kind of getting stuck in, is, we had a recent conversation just yesterday or the day before. My days all blend into each other, but
welcome back.
yeah, exactly. I had a conversation with our equipment staff, like our equipment guys, our head equipment therapist, our assistant equipment therapist, his assistant, about responsibilities on the road. And I said to them, listen, Dale's going to do all the travel. I'm going to travel quite frequently this first year, but we want you to tell us if you need us, because we want to help. So the outgoing guys, they'd come, late night, plane lands, go to the rink, help set up. And they're like, are you guys okay with that? I said, absolutely. Like, we're team players here. We want to do what's easiest for everybody, because if, we sacrifice an hour of sleep so everybody goes to bed a half an hour earlier, that's better for the team than for us getting that extra hour of sleep and you going to bed 2 hours later. And, they're like, are you guys sure? Like, not that the other people didn't do it, because they did it, but like, I wanted to be, and I said, I want this out on the table. I want to set the expectation. We will help you. And they're like, we get it. Like, if we have a workout at 9 a.m. the next morning, we're not going to expect you to come help us, and I said, perfect. And, if we're there if you need us. And I think that goes a long way. And, like, I was talking to Dale today, and I was telling him that he's like, he's absolutely all for it. And it goes a long way. And we're there for the team. And there are some people that might be like, oh, you're a performance director. Like, I guess technically I'm management, but I still want to be close to the team. But also at the same time, like, we're a team. Like, if myself as a performance director can help uplift other areas of the organization in the mundane day to day, we're going to do it. Like, it's not fun hanging wet, soggy equipment at 2:00 in the morning when you land, but guess what? That's where you get to know people. That's where the stories from the road come up. And that's where, like, I'm going to tell you, and I don't think our equipment guys will ever watch this, but I've already called in like 2 or 3 favors that I was dreading going to ask them for. Getting stuff set up for me, like sewing catapult pouches on the back of 30 different shoulder pads. Like I said to them, I'm like, guys, I feel really bad asking you this because I haven't earned enough favors from you yet, but can you do this for me? And they're like, absolutely no problem. Like, no questions. So here I am, like, who am I to say, no, I'm not going to help you? Like, I want to help these guys. Like, they helped me huge. Like, our one of our other assistant equipment managers, he has been unbelievable. His name's Steamer. And so I, like, my first week here, it was, Steamer, what's this? Steamer, can you help me with that? And he's like, yes. So it got to the point where it's like my 5th or 6th question of the day, I said, Steamer, I feel really bad, but I've got a question for you. And he was like, oh my gosh, like, never feel that way. He's like, he's been here like 30 years. He's like, I couldn't imagine moving to a new city, going to a new organization. You don't know where anything is or who to call or whatever. He's like, don't even mention that again. You call me or ask me as many questions as you want. So, like, those are the people I want to help. Like, those are the people I want to be around. And you know, there's a lot of people in hockey that are like that. Like, it's a great sport that way. There's so many people I worked with at Hockey Canada that are that exact same way. And you know, I just, you know, as corny or as cheesy as it sounds, blessed to be in another environment or organization that has people that are that way, that, you know, want to help. They want to do what's best for the team. If it makes my job easier, great. At the same time, if it makes their job easier, Dale and I are going to do it with them.
Sure. And you see that you can, if you've been in sport or you've been behind the scenes a little bit in sport, you see the organizations where that happens. Like, you can see the team without the highest payroll, the team that pulls together, that sort of like camaraderie and all those other pieces, and the team that's not supposed to win that first round of the playoffs, right? Like those teams, generally speaking, have a lot of that underbelly stuff that can't be analyzed through CBC or TSN or people that are on the outside looking in. And it's a really great insight. And one of the things that I learned in my first few days in pro sport was, if there are 2 people you better get to know, it's the equipment manager and the clubhouse attendant, and get to know them very well, know what they drink, know what they take in their coffee, because you're going to have a lot of overlap with them, coming in early, leaving late, and understanding that they are a very big part of things. They are the glue, sometimes quite literally, maybe the stitch that holds things together, right? As things move along. And I don't think people that are outside or trying to get in could get better insight than some of the stuff that you shared just from your first couple of weeks there. Amazing stuff, and amazing capture. And sure, it looks like from the outside you're just hiring your buddy, but Dale LeBlanc's an amazing strength coach who's going to be there now in the day-to-day and doing the travel. And we won't get into talking about Dale and any of those things without him being here, but would love to capture you guys maybe at the All-Star break or something like that, and check in with both of you at the same time and see how things are going with Montreal. It's a dream job. It's an original 6 team, but they got some beauties. They got some beauties in bringing you guys on board. So publicly, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Dale. Congratulations on the big move. A lot of consideration as well, just before we wrap up, but a lot of consideration, and you don't need to get into detail. That's not the goal here, but the goal here is to shine a little bit of light of the considerations to life, right? Like you're now in Montreal, you mentioned your wife and your kids and these things. Like, these are not easy decisions to make. They obviously factor into the decision-making process. How would you capture sort of that part, I guess, for the audience, for maybe the younger listeners or those that are considering a return perhaps to pro sport, or a consideration of a pro job?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, certainly you need to consider a lot more things before you take an opportunity like this. You know, my wife and I talked about it a lot. Obviously, I couldn't do it. I think it might have been your podcast, or certainly Scott Livingston's podcast. I talked a lot about having that strong support network back home. But my wife and I kind of always talked about these windows of opportunity, and it had a lot to do with the kids' age and their age in school. We didn't want to uproot the kids as they entered their teen years or tween years, I guess. So my oldest is 9. So we were right kind of on the edge of, moving opportunity. Again, as I talked about at the beginning, with it being a Canadian city, that factored in a lot. But, the thing in Montreal is the language. I will say it added a lot of stress to my wife and my kids currently about, they didn't know if they would understand the language. How would they communicate? What's the school system like? Fortunately, a few things, I have a fairly good connection with a lot of therapists and coaches from Hockey Canada in the Quebec League. And so talking to a lot of them, a lot of them would say, like, Montreal is a bilingual city, but everybody here is, I don't want to say it's more English than French, but I haven't run into an opportunity yet where I haven't been able to communicate with somebody.
Right.
And so that, I talked to a few of the people that worked in Montreal. They're like, yes, like, that won't be a problem. And so that helped these things, being an organization like Montreal, they have people to help you. Like, I have a tutor that will work with me on teaching me French. Or for me, a lot, it's just dusting off the cobwebs back in my brain from high school. My last French class was high school.
Right.
But my kids, like in Ontario, they don't really teach French. Like, my kids don't like French. Like, it's their least favorite subject in school. So there's that anxiety of, well, they hate it the way they learn it now. But when you're ingrained in it at that young age, like, I'm excited for my kids to learn French, especially being here and seeing how powerful bilingualism is. They're at an age where I think it'll be relatively easy for them when they're in that. But these are all things like we had to consider. Like, we had lots of conversations even now. So my family stayed back in Oakville and I came. Mm-hmm. And that was a big decision. And, they just left. Actually, they were here this weekend. I went home last weekend before the craziness started. They'll come up Thanksgiving. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit. But we didn't feel like as bad as it was to break up our family unit for the year, we didn't feel it was right based off the COVID year that our kids had and the crazy school year they had, to drop on them 3 weeks before school that they were looking forward to going back to, that we were moving. So right. We made the decision that my wife and kids will come next summer, and I'll just get, a short-term rental place and, grind it out. I'm working 12 to 14-hour days as we establish ourselves here. And so we didn't want to drop that on my wife, that guess what, you're moving to a new city, we're uprooting the kids, all of that upheaval, and I'm going to be working 14-hour days, so you'll never see me. Like, we just didn't think that was fair to anybody. And, so we, we kind of made that decision that they were going to stay back. And, I wish I could say it was all sunshine and rainbows, but, it's tough. Like, even my kids, like, they're worried about missing their friends. They're worried about doing this. Like, they don't understand the gravity or the opportunity that this job can mean for our family or myself or my career. They don't get that. Like,
right.
They don't care if it's the Montreal Canadiens. They don't care if it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't care if it's the Calgary Flames. They just don't want to leave Oakville. Like, they don't get that, right? They're not teenagers. They're not, they're not 20 years old and can be like, wow, that's a cool job. But so they're slowly warming up to it. The nice part is the organization is fantastic. So whether I need help finding a place, they have somebody. Whether they have like I mentioned, the tutor, they have education consultants. They have people there that are willing to make the transition as easy as possible. But it was a family decision. And, sometimes my wife and I are like, oh geez, did we make the right one? But at the end of the day, like, we know come next summer, we're all going to be here. We're all going to be together. And actually, the nice part is this gives us 7 months to find the exact area of Montreal or South Shore that we want to live. And
yeah,
we didn't have to rush into anything. And, that's the nice part. So there are pros and cons. Sometimes we wish we had just done it, right away, rip the Band-Aid off and take the 3 to 4 weeks of absolute chaos and turmoil and heartache and everything of fully upending. But At the same time, we're like, no, like we're sticking to our guns. We're going to do this slow process because at the end of the day, we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, and again, some amazing insight, and appreciate you sharing the personal side of this as well, and the home life, because I think those are considerations that some of us, all of us, if we haven't been there, don't necessarily consider, and all of those pieces, right? And there are some amazing areas of Montreal. Make sure you explore that in these warmer months before the winter kicks on fully. But the summers there are beautiful. Lots of stone brick walkways and roadways, and some really amazing history, obviously, too, outside of the organization itself. So man, just so happy for you, and heard about that, saw that, read that, and just wanted to connect you with our audience, like, once again, in a new role, and just show that all of this hard work, this vision, this sort of a non-linear path can lead to some pretty amazing things. I know this wasn't necessarily the focal point, but it was always there, and all of your work was always recognized in the hockey world. And yeah, man, Original Six, no matter what colors it is, what a thrill, a Canadian team, and to go in there with your vision, they're lucky to have you on board, and what a piece this will be. So we'll be watching closely from this side of things, and watching Stride Length and all these other things, and reading your PhD and all these other papers and things like that as we get going here into the hockey season. Man, it's always great to catch up, always great to see your face, hear your voice, and for all your shares this evening and in the past, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, James. Glad to be a part of it. And you've grown this podcast. As I said, I think I was number 9 or 8 or 7 when you first got back from Bahamas. So to see where you've grown this to, that's awesome. And kudos to you for offering this service to your athletic therapy world. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, it only goes as far as the guests, so that all comes down to you. Appreciate that, man. And session 90, First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast with Adam Douglas, Director of Sports Science and Performance, Montreal Canadiens. As always, brought to you by First Star Therapy, Benchmark Athletics, Mobility Tape, and Epic. That's EPOCH. And once again, bringing it back around to the start of this, we'll just take a moment here of acknowledgement for the life of Francis Perron with the University of Ottawa, and to all those that have been touched by this loss or any other loss, to be quite honest. Seek the help. Seek help if you're feeling overwhelmed or in need of emotional support. There's help out there. There's channels available. Sport provides so much. So with that said, wish everybody a peaceful night, good evening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.